Hey, what's up, Pat? It's Rich. All right, let's do this. I got this thing printed out finally. So yeah, this is what you chose. I'm talking to you, but I know you said that I could share this video. So I'm talking to you and then anyone else that will watch this. So basically, Pat, and don't worry, this won't cut any of your time, Pat. The intro at least. Yeah, so Pat's gotten the $50 tier, and he inked Wolf's Portaccio Wetworks piece and a Superman Jim Lee piece. And sometimes I have scans of the pencils or a photocopy of the pencils that I can do. And other times, I mean, I just basically go on Google and I look for high-res files, and then I convert them to blue for you. He prints it out himself. I think he probably, you know, goes to like a local printer, but he wanted a bit of a lesson before he starts to actually ink the piece. So this is the one he's going for. I actually have never ever inked Marc Silvestri. Not even goofing around with it. Oh, you know what? When I first broke in at Wildstorm, they had a sample page that had, it was a blue line of all things, back before blue lines were even a thing, as weird as that sounds. They had a page, and they took 11 by 17 board and actually filled it with, like, basically panel size samples from different artists. So there'd be, like, a little bit of a Jim Lee piece or a Wolf's Portaccio monster face, and they kind of threw a mishmash of things to do. So, you know, you can always, I could put one of those together for the $50 tier if you all want, where, yeah, you could try that. So anyway, again, Pat, this doesn't cut any of your time. So this would be the first thing that I would do. If you've never inked someone before, which most of you that are trying to learn would have probably never have worked over the artist's work before, my original samples that I did, the very, very, very first time that I ever did ink test pages. So I'm talking like, I had the fantasy that I wanted to ink. I believed that I could learn to do it. An inker named Mike Christian gave me about 8 to 10 photocopies, and they were a couple of Cully Hamner firearm pages. There was a Neil Adams Tarzan sketch with him like on the back of an ape with a knife cutting his throat. There was some like Lobo art. I'm trying to think what else there was. Anyway, it was about 8 to 10 different pencilers. Some of them I kind of knew from comics. I had only been collecting comics for probably less than a year. So I was totally fresh. And I took literally this one tech pen. And I might have had a brush. I never used the brush to ink, but I might have used it to fill in large areas of black. But I inked all 10 test pages with this tech pen. Not this exact one, but this size, which is a 0.35. It would be like, if it was a micron, it would probably be close to the 1, somewhere between a 1 and like a 3. And I inked literally every single blemish that was on the paper. Like, literally, if the photocopy made like a little spackle mark, I would go in with like stipple and like do that, or you know what I mean? Like any anomaly on the page, I literally just carbon copied everything that was down as close as I could. And when I showed it to Mike, you know, a couple of weeks later, he kind of laughed and was like, oh man, he's like, okay, he's like, well, you should probably learn to use a brush. So the first tool that I actually learned to ink with was a brush, and he used Winsor Newton brushes. I think he used the Series 7 number 2 size. And yeah, so that's how I learned. But so this is how I would approach a page like this for anyone that's a newer inker, is give it a good once over and kind of look at it, and you don't really need to strategize. Like, I don't really come up with a strategy for things, but with someone like Marc, who's real sketchy, you kind of need to decide where your blacks are going to be. And this is what Pat's going to need to do when he inks this. So Pat, you want to look at this and decide, are you going to do this in line work? Because if I'm always scared to zoom in with this camera, because then it autofocuses. But do you see these lines? Like in theory, this is probably black in here. But at some point, you're going to want to start to break up the black and have more line work somewhere. Here is a good example too. Like, where's your fade? So this is clearly light and it goes up in here. But you could argue that you could take this line work up about as high as you want. So the decision making at that point becomes, where is there going to be a balance within the full piece to create an appealing looking image that doesn't have dark areas over here, lighter areas over here, and it becomes very mishmash. So people ask, how do you get good at that? How do you get good at drawing something like this and knowing where to spot the blacks and where to you know, render, where to do it? I mean, essentially what it comes down to, and I think what will help you get that eye, the eye to know where it is looking at good art. Now, that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I think that even looking at really good paintings in like black and white, you need to get a sense of value is what it really boils down to. And you just don't want you don't want something really dark here, rendery here, you know, dark over here. It should have a flow to it. So it's just one of those things that you're going to develop over time. What Marc does is he sketches everything in real loosely, and I've posted some examples of Marc's thumbnails, but you know, what he's really doing with the blacks in this is he's framing this guy's head. What I would do is I would have most of this pretty dark and really locking in this guy's head, and then I would have a light to dark here, light to dark here, light to dark here. So everything is zooming in on this guy's face. This hand is important. So this hand I would make pop. He's got some nice dark blacks here. This black here is going to separate this arm from his torso. So I would keep it pretty dark over here and have this as a real solid shape. These can be dark, but I'm going to start to defocus the detail a little bit. Like having all of these jet black may be risky, because now all of a sudden you've got these really heavy dark shapes down here that's going to pull your eye away from this. So when I ink this, I would want this to be a focus. So this has really got to pop, and then the grays are framing it. The grays are pulling you into it. This is just a hum of an arm. It's drawn, it's there. This dark area here is going to frame it. This dark under here is going to frame it. And it just kind of goes from dark to light. And the light opens up so that you see this hand. So that's kind of the mindset that you need to get into. Now, I'm only doing 15 minutes of inking on this for Pat, because we're going to use the rest of the time to go over his piece. And then what I'll do is I'll do more. Like I'll spend maybe 20 minutes critiquing his work, and then I'll do another 30 minutes of me inking and showing him like, hey, like on the hand here, you could have tried this. And Pat has a pretty kind of a more gritty style right now, and he I think you expressed interest in maybe developing that. I think it's a good idea. You know, this is what I always tell people, and I really do believe this, is just do the style that's natural to you and get really, really good at it. You don't need to, like, I don't think you need to conform to sort of some sort of mindset in terms of like, well, do I need to learn to ink like this guy? All I ever look for when people show me their inks is there a balance in value, and are the pieces drawn well, and does it look good as a final image? And as long as the art looks comfortable, really anything goes, and styles and all that. It just has to look good, you know. And that doesn't mean technically drawn well, just that it's a nice looking image, and then anything goes. I that's how I feel. Now, other people may disagree. I'm just getting my ink ready right now. So what I normally do when I start a piece is I look for something easy to work on. But since I'm not inking this piece, you know, like I'm not doing a tutorial of the whole thing inking it, I'm just going to show him some techniques. So I'm just going to get warmed up for a second first. So normally this would be how I would start a page, is I would just go in and find something easy and spend 5 or 10 minutes. And with Marc stuff, the one thing I'm already thinking is I want to break up some lines and have it kind of breathe and have gaps. So my camera looks focused. Hopefully it is. This is going to be real dark down here. I'm still going to outline it, even though sometimes it's black upon black. Again, I'm just trying to get my hand loose at this point, so. It's got a really kind of cool like vein coming through here right here. So I just created a little triangle with my nib, and now I'm flicking a thin line, and then I'm gonna pull this in, and I may hit this with white later, but the technique that I used to do that, so I take the nib and I literally just draw like a little triangle. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it. Like I said, I'm always tentative to zoom in, but do you see that little shape? So you'll see me, this is not actual, this will be black in this area, and then I flick it. But that's what I'm doing. When you see me sort of like working on one little area, a lot of times I'm creating a little diamond and then I flick it. So again, this is going to be black in here, but that's the technique. If you ever see me stop in a spot and I'm kind of scribbling, usually I'm creating a shape. And that's the thing too, is I know the shapes that I want to see down here. So it doesn't matter if I use a Copic multi-liner, because I'm still going to draw the same shape because I already know what I want. Like here, I mean, I have to sculpt things more, meaning I have to kind of scribble it out more, but it's still the same exact thing. I'm still creating like the little diamond and flicking it if that's what I want, and I get the same exact look. And that's where it confuses people, because they'll look at my work and they'll go, oh man, I love all the brush that you did on the hair. And it's like, I could have easily have done it with this or a Tech pen or with a 102, because the tool doesn't dictate my line. It can help make it easier to put down, but a feathery line, at least from me, doesn't necessarily mean that I used a brush. With Marc stuff, I would use mostly nib and then maybe some brush. So we're going to let that area dry really quick, and I'm actually going to break out a brush. And I don't know if you use a brush, Pat. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm going to grab one out and I'll show you the techniques. And what I've been doing for people that want the inking lessons, and like I said, I'm more than comfortable and able to do the penciling ones. I have a 30-minute kind of, I wouldn't call it a generic video, but it introduces the tools and then some core fundamental techniques that you need to get really good at if you want to ink. And so I made it as like, I wouldn't call it a bonus, but in a way it is too. It's like if someone takes the $50 tier with the inking, I'll send them that, because it's a good video to see, and although you may know the tools already, some of the exercises and stuff that I have in it are definitely worth checking out. So I just went in and outlined that. And again, that could have easily have been a Hunt 102. It's not a big deal. Again, I know the line that I want, and I'm basically just drawing it with the tool. I rule the tool. The tool does not rule me. It just affords you a faster way to get the look. You know what I mean? Because you want to be efficient. That's the thing, is like a brush can get lines quicker than sculpting them. So the cats are fighting. They're excited that I'm making a video. It's funny because I've been cranking out a lot of videos for YouTube. Seriously, guys, do not fight. Ladies. Anyway, I'm just going to outline this little area really quick. Again, I'm still trying to warm up, so... Never, the moral of that is just, you know, like, even if you're a really good inker or you have a lot of experience, there's no shame in just kind of getting comfortable for the morning. Again, sculpting the line, I want this sharp. I'm leaving little gaps. I'll show this a little closer, but I'm breaking up things. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of like a little triple loop here, I think. It doesn't have to be 3, but I think it'll be about that. I'm gonna have like a little interesting kind of just some real thin lines that sort of arc like that, and then I'm gonna throw the brush lines through it. So I think it'll look cool. I'm gonna outline this little thing right here. He's got, again, it looks broken up, so I'm gonna break it up even more. And then with Marc stuff, this would be another thing that I would suggest is thins and thicks. Like, the variety of the line is going to really make it look pretty sexy. So don't be afraid to go quite thin, and then have some lines that or like little shadow areas. He's really into like Wrightson and Frazetta and Buscema and all that. So you will be fine. Now I'm doing brush strokes. And again, that intro video that I'll send anyone that wants to learn to ink, you'll get all those core techniques in that video. So I'm like, and then you can go through and throw a second set of lines. I'm going to wait and decide later if I want to do sort of like the waggle stroke there or not. Again, I because I haven't inked Marc before, the decision-making process of what techniques I'm going to use will be different. All right, so anyway, so that's how I approach some of the more less... Let me just finish this little area so you see it all the way done. What I mean by that is I want these to be cool looking, but less interesting than what's interesting on this piece. So how I do that is I'm de-emphasizing things just by the line weights, the level of detail, and I want this to be, it's just it's like this fabric kind of floating up in the air. It's got to have a little bit of speed and lightness to it. You know, it's sticking up in the air, so kind of feel it. I'm going to add a couple extra lines here just to have it look a little creepy. And then I'm going to grab... I'll do it with a Copic multi-liner. You could do this with a Micron, and you could even do it with a Hunt 102, but I just want... he's got two very, very thin lines that go here, and they have little dots on them, so I'm just going to kind of put those in. Okay. So, and that's how that would look, and then I'll do this bottom area too. And this may be black. I'll decide how dark this area is going to be in here. He's got scribbly lines. Scribbly lines to me are always kind of an indicator of I can make them scribbly or I can make them black. And you know, you guys have seen like I did a Lanil Yu red skull face, and I went in and I rendered that stuff like a lot. So it just depends on when I would get this guy's face fully inked, then I can decide there. Oh, god damn it, I just ran my hand through that ink. It's the hard thing about trying to talk and do these pieces. I lose track of what I've inked and what I haven't. I'll be able to erase that a little bit in a second, but yeah, I don't smear that much, honestly. If I'm just working on my own and not jabbering, it's pretty rare that I smear. But all right, so let's see what. So this is what I would normally do is because this area is wet, I wouldn't probably keep inking this area, but because I'm trying to do it as a demo, I want to like finish the area so Pat can see it in an effective way. So anyway, we'll so now I'm using the Hunt 102 sculpted line. I just drew basically like a brush stroke looking bottom to this, and then I'm pulling this out pretty light. Again, sculpting the brush stroke bottom. I'll pull in, and you can see this in a second, what I did. And I see a lot of inkers that ink kind of more sideways with a nib. Not a lot, but I've seen that. I don't know what's right. I mean, I just twist it to basically get whatever line I want. But a lot of times, I mean, I do kind of use it with the, like, straight across, but you can use it sideways. It'll get a little bit of a thinner line, kind of more like a knife blade. And these I actually do want to make them sort of double lines, so I'll show you that in one sec. So you see how I made them a little dark, like a little thicker and a little more pointy at the bottom, and then they get thinner there. And then what I'm going to do is, I'll do this with a Copic multi-liner because the ink is kind of wet. And I want to do it right now. Is I'm doing, again, this technique is on the intro video, so I'm not going to go over the full like what the rationale of where I start it and where I stop it. But I just kind of double those lines, so there's a little bit of a thin line in between them. All right, I'm going to try to erase this really quick so I don't smear it more. But I want to ink a little bit of that arm. Yeah, this stuff bugs the shit out of me. And I'll tell you a funny story. Okay, so when I was first learning to ink, maybe my first like 30 test pages that I did, I would smear not a lot, but more than I liked. I'm pretty finicky, you know. So it bothered me so much. I honestly was able to eliminate smears almost completely from my work, which was like, the pain of having a smear was so scarring to me that yeah, I was like, I couldn't tolerate it. So I mean, I still do smear occasionally, but it's usually only if I'm rushing or being pretty careless. I'm just gonna kind of white some of this stuff out because it's gonna bug me seeing that little those shapes sitting there. So I'm just gonna kind of clean up the areas that won't be black, and that way when I ink it, you won't really be able to tell it was there. And I wouldn't normally recommend doing your whiteouts this early in a piece. I do it occasionally, again, just because it bothers my eye seeing a value in a spot where the value shouldn't be there. It's a weird thing, but I really do kind of craft inks like a painting, and so any kind of weird anomalies really start to affect my. It wouldn't affect my decision making, but it's a distraction when I'm trying to like read the piece. Because it's all a balance to me. That's the whole concept behind how I personally ink, is I'm creating a level of comfort in the drawing. Which boils down to drawing. I've mentioned this before, but when people will ask me about inking, I usually end up talking about drawing, because that's what it ultimately is you're finishing a drawing, and the way that a drawing looks good and works is value. It's the whole, I mean, everything kind of hinges on it. So, but a good penciler will set you up for that. You know, that's the thing, is like Marc has done all the heavy lifting, and then you just need to make sure that you can decipher and make the right call. It's not easy though. I don't want to even paint it as that, because it really isn't. So it just takes time. And Marc is probably one of the harder people to ink, I would think. You know, of his generation. Jim can draw pretty loose too, though. Like Jim and Marc have some similarities. So, and again, I'm just sculpting those lines. So I'm creating little shapes, and then I kind of just keep moving the Hunt 102 around, and fill them in as I'm going. I'm gonna I'll show you this in one sec, but you know, just making little shapes, happy shapes. No. And this ink is soaking wet right here, right now. So it like really, I wouldn't call it risky to do, but you need to be very, very aware of an area like this for a while, because I'm slapping in the ink real dark and real wet. This would take probably five minutes to dry completely. But what you'll see is I never go back over it until later. So this is like a first pass. But yeah, that's so wet right now. And you could do these with a brush too. If you're more comfortable with a brush, we'll do some right here like that. And then I'm going to show you some of the stuff down here. But there's a lot of this. Marc does a lot of these kind of crinkle areas. It's like, they're almost like they look like folds, even though he does them on skin, but it's just their crisscrossing patterns of shape. It works though. It works quite well. There was a what was her name? The female character, was she Cyblade? No, not Cyblade. What was her name? It was a splash page at the end of one of the early issues of Cyberforce, and she's like standing in the water with a gun. She's the blonde with short hair, and like the robotic eye. But man, he drew her pants, and it was like he did the pants like this, where it's just all these like crisscrossy shapes. I remember one time trying to do like a little study of that area to learn folds. It's like, good luck. He's just suggesting stuff, so it's very difficult to really do it and have it look as good as his does, because he's trusting his eye. That's what it really comes down to, is it's a bit of kind of fictional detail. But anyway, so you're going to want to build the stuff up like that, and then he's got like a little bit of feathering and stuff that goes through it. You could do the double line kind of coming into your black and then feather into it. So like I have it sort of here. I'll do one. I'll show you this a little closer. See those? So when he's got another one right here. And I'll snap a photo of this, and I can send you kind of like a high-res photo so you could sort of check it out. One line got a little funky. He doesn't have feathering here, but it needs to be consistent with the other ones. So I'm going to put just a little bit. It's the same thing, basically. A little light. I don't think I'll take that out. It's kind of a continuation of that. So this thing is already looking cool. Okay, so then we're going to go down here. We're going to do a little bit of this, because this is the hard. To me, this is the hardest part of the whole piece. These get fairly long. I would probably warm up for a little bit more before I would normally do these, but so I'm going to take the brush, and I show you this technique on that introductory video, but I take the brush and I flick like this. So I'm putting the stroke down and very thinly flicking it. Put the stroke down and flick it. All right, it's hard. This is a hard technique, and if your balance isn't good, meaning your weight, how much weight you're putting on the brush, these lines are going to all go different weights and sizes, and you're going to have to draw through here, meaning, I'll show you this in a sec. Up here with this cloth going through, there's dangly pieces of cloth that he probably erased or had them outlined and then just drew the pencil around it. As an inker, your best bet is to just draw through them. You could use Frisket or some sort of liquid thing and paint over this and then peel it off, but I mean, realistically, your best bet is to just go back in with white. So you could ink these lines first. You could take a Hunt 102, ink these lines. I could do it really fast. Just so you can see them good, and then at the very end, that's when you're going to want to put the white in the little pieces of fabric that are hanging down. You still want your little line weights. So you usually on the bottom planes of things is where your thicker line weights are going to go. This will all be, it'll be heading towards black up here, but okay, so got that inked. But yeah, I'm going to draw right over that with these lines. We're at 30 minutes, so this went quite a bit over, but this will be fine. We'll wrap this up and then but yeah, as you can see, I don't really watch the clock on these that closely. Like it should be at an hour, but I don't mind going over for you guys, you know. I want to make sure that the lesson is clear. That's the thing. And this is just half of his lesson, or really was going to be just 25%. But since we're doing sort of a group thing, and then this is where I'm going to start having it black. All right, and there's going to be a second set of lines that are going to go through this in a second. I actually did make, I would recommend too, when you do pieces, and if you're printing out a blue line, print out a black and white copy that's a bit darker than the blue line so that you have something to refer back to. Because a lot of times if you throw like cross hatching, the first set of lines will kind of obscure your vision to, these have to be really thin because this is the furthest out. I don't want these lines hanging out here being super dark. So again, I'm kind of following Marc's strokes. It will look better to me personally. This is just my own belief on this stuff, is like I want it to look like a penciler drew this in ink, not some robot inked it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like I don't want a mechanical delivery on it. Okay, these cross over these a bit. But yeah, I like a little bit of organicness to my stuff, and then this is gonna fade. So again, you'll go in with white later and create your fabric that goes through there. So it can look a little choppy and kind of be annoying while you're working on it, but it'll look really nice when it's done. That's what matters, you know, ultimately. All right, so let's do a little bit of these. But yeah, this will be the hardest part for you, Pat. This is, I'm not going to kid you. This is, and this would make this piece worth doing 3 or 4 times, which is what I would do when I was learning. Is a piece this hard, the first time that I did it, would never really be the way that I would want it to look when I would get done with it. You know, I would be happy that I finished it, but you know, the second time I would do it, I would be able to address some of the areas that my strategy didn't work or my control wasn't like on point at that moment. And then if I even did a third version, you don't have to do them all back to back. I would always improve them. And so hard pieces that I felt had a value of doing them multiple times, I never shied away from doing it. Don't fight, guys. I'm telling you. It's raining, too, which always gets them amped up. I don't know what it is, but, yeah, they get, like, all crazy with the rain. All right, and then I have this start to fade. Stop. Seriously, stop. 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 The cat had the one cat cornered and was going to hit it in the face, had its paw back. How dare they? See how I have to regulate? You see me on YouTube and you think I'm a nice guy. I'm the cat wrangler. All right. It's a little disappointing when I see Marc ink himself and he does stuff like this, because he'll go in with a freaking Sharpie. It looks so ugly. Oh my god. It's like that purplish blue ink and oh man, it's just hideous. But he does some really cool inks on himself, but I don't know why he hasn't just taken the leap into buying like a decent brush pen or like learn to use a brush, because he could do it in a few weeks. And then he wouldn't have, like, you know, this all over his page where he's like... But anyway, all right, Pat, seriously, good luck with this piece. Have a lot of fun with it. You know, again, even for me, like, I could ink this thing and it'll probably look pretty cool right now. But I'm telling you, if I did a second pass on it, it would look better. So, anyway... I hope that helps at least get you in the right mindset for it. And yeah, ink the piece. We'll go over it, and then I'll show you more techniques. All right, good luck, and thank you so much for going for the $50 tier. I really do appreciate it, and you know that. So, all right, bye.